Yes.
Send it to Vaishnavi.
Thank you. I think Manisha ji, now you can start.
Thank you.
So yeah, we are going to start the last session, which is the panel discussion, question and answer. So Manisha, yes, please go ahead.
Namaste everyone, Jai Gurudev. So we have come to the last part of our seminar today. Great presentations, Prashantji, Muskan and Vaishnavi. And this next little part is going to be very interesting. We will be meeting 3 accomplished youth from Gayatri Pariwar. Can everyone please mute their devices? So we will be meeting 3 youths from Gayatri Pariwar. These 3 kids, I've seen them growing up from little kids into nice young people now. They had their eyes set on a goal. They worked very hard. They were very determined. And today they are doing something that they want to do. They are progressing in their career paths towards the goal that they wanted to achieve. So I will be asking a few questions to them. And if you guys feel like you have any additional questions, please put it in the chat box. And if we have time at the end, then I will add those to my list as well, and I will ask them. So I will begin by introducing my panel here. So first off, we have Jaladhi. Jaladhi is 24 years old. She is currently studying law in British Columbia. She's been part of Gayatri Parivar since she was very young, so for a very long time now. Second, we have Ojas. Ojas is currently studying medicine at University of Alberta. He's in his second year. He's 23 years old, and he is member of Gayatri Parivar. He's been actively volunteering with us for more than 10 years now. And the third member on our panel is Mitul. Mitul is 22 years old. He is currently doing engineering. He is in 4th year of mechanical engineering at the University of Waterloo. And he's been associated with Gayatri Parivar for quite some time now. So since he was 7, he started volunteering, and his family is also quite associated with the Gayatri Parivar. So he is volunteering for many years now. So with that, I will start my questions. My first question actually is same for all of you. So I will start with you, Jaladhi. And so this is like a little bit of icebreaker question. I mentioned that you guys are where you wanted to be in your careers right now. But if there is anything that you wished you could have done differently 5 years ago, what would that be? So Jaladhi, can you please start?
Yeah, thank you, Manisha Aunty, for that introduction. And this is a very interesting question for me because 5 years ago, I believe I was very set in my own ways. I had a very specific and a narrow path that I wanted to follow in my mind. And while I think that that was great, I still believe that if I had more time to just explore more opportunities, keep an open mindset, that would have been something that I would have wanted to do. If there is something that sometimes you plan something and then it doesn't work out, it's easier to think that it would be difficult to go ahead and choose it something different. Like it's not the end of the world if your goal is if you not what your goal is.
हितेश जी आप प्लीज अपना म्यूट कर दीजिए आई थिंक उनका अनम्यूट है
I will mute everybody and our presenters only just they can unmute, just give me 1 second so that. Oh, I am not.
Yeah, so as I was saying, I did not, if I had to go back, I would not be as set in my path. I would like to explore more opportunities, make more connections, maybe travel even a little bit more. I know that a lot of universities offer a semester abroad. And I did not take advantage of that opportunity. So I would do that as well.
That's good. That's good to know. So the same question to you, Ojas. What is the one thing you wished you had done 5 years ago?
So I guess kind of similar to Jolly that obviously like it's hard to know what you want to do when you're younger,
But I think the one piece of advice that I knew, or which I wish I knew a little earlier, for me would have been learning how to plan. Every one of us, like regardless of how old you have to exercise, you have to eat healthy, you have to do X, Y, and Z. But the problem is there's never enough time to do all those things. So what my biggest thing that I would do about 5 years ago is learn how to properly use a calendar. And what I mean by that is, so I know a lot of us have iPads or iPhones. So a lot of those iPads and iPhones actually have apps in which you can create a to-do list. And this is a very simple and easy thing to do. And this is what if I could go back in 5 years, I would start doing this right away. So just download an app that allows you to make a to-do list, or when you start your day, at the first thing you do every single day, grab a piece of paper and write down 5 or 6 things that you want to do for that day. So for example, like this morning, I wanted to, I would write down study for 2 hours. Then I would write down maybe exercise for 1 hour. And then I would write down 1 or 2 other things, like go for a walk for 30 minutes. So I think even just writing down 3 or 4 things gives you guidance for your day. And not only that, but once you're able to check off something, literally, it helps you feel a lot more accomplished for that day, and it gives you a lot of direction for that day. So I know it's a very small thing, but I guarantee you, if you do this every single day, it will have a drastic change on how you not only do in school, but also how you view your life and how you manage your time on a day-to-day basis. So I think the number one thing I would do, if I could go back 5 years ago, was literally the first thing I do when I wake up, get out a piece of paper, write down 3 or 4 very simple things that I want to do. And then once I do them, just check them off. So that would be my thing that if I could change 5 years ago, that's what I would do.
That's a great tip, Ojas. So same question to you, Mithil.
Yeah, so something I wish I knew or did 5 years ago was I was in high school. I think I was in grade 12 5 years ago. And that's around the time when some kids might have their first jobs or are opening their bank accounts. So this is more geared toward, I guess, high school students, but it applies at all ages. I wish I looked more or researched more into personal financial management. And what I mean by that is when you're opening your first bank account, it's easy to research online what the importance of saving is. So I recently read a good book, which was called The Automatic Millionaire by David Bach. And some of the key tips and tricks I learned that I just want to share 1 or 2 with you is about personal financial management is small purchases add up. So as a university student, I would spend, let's say, $3 to $5 a day at Tim Hortons, which might be a habit that some of you might develop going into university. But those $3 to $5 spending at Tim Hortons or Starbucks, if you save it over a year basis, that roughly equates to $1,000. And let's say you were able to save that $1,000 by just having cereal at home or having like a banana for breakfast at home. So these small purchases add up. And if I knew that as a grade 12 student going into university, I think that would have been a great tip. And then by saving that $1,000, you can also invest it in your future and let that money grow. And that leads to my second tip that I learned from that book is that savings and investments, like personally, they compound over time. So if you were able to save that $1,000, let's say you had your first job at Subway or McDonald's, and you put that $1,000 into a savings account that gave you a 5% return, which you can do at the age of 65, when you retire, that $1,000 would roughly equal $200,000 saved. And that's just the bank doing its magic. And it's just compound interest. So these little tips and tricks I learned from that book, if I knew that 5 years ago, it would really help me out. And I think if you're going into high school, it's a great, in summary, it's great to look into personal financial management.
Thank you, Mithil. That is something that we can all use, even the adults, we can learn about personal financial management. So yeah, good tip there. So going back to my questions, Jaladi, I want to ask you, how does spirituality help you in achieving your goals?
Yeah, so For me, spirituality is just believing in that there is a high power and that we are all surrounded by positive energies, which are created and destroyed by different people and thoughts alike. For me, spirituality helps me keep centered and focused in achieving my goals. It makes me connect with myself a little bit better. Just like surrounding myself with positive energy through spiritual community events. So things like that Gayatri Pariwar does would be tree plantations or yagnas or just meeting up the youths just helps me achieve a sense of content, peace, and belonging. And and through all of these events, I'm able to meet a lot of like-minded people. So that's like just an added bonus of just surrounding yourself with people who would stick with you through thick and thin, support you, motivate you to push yourself further. If you have some issues going on, you can talk to them. So even for mental health, spirituality is something which really helps me keep me grounded. So yes,
That
essentially,
makes sense, and it's good to know that spirituality and especially the connection to Gayatri Parivar and participating in all the activities have helped you quite a lot. Um, so my next question is for you, Mithul. I know that you live in Waterloo in Toronto and you live away from your family. This year has been quite a strange one for all the students with all the virtual studying. And I guess we can use a little bit of your insight on how have you adapted to virtual schooling?
Thank you, Manisha ji. So with the current global situation going on, I think a lot of students in general and everyone in general has had to adapt either to virtual schooling or working from home. And some of the things I've learned or I want to share with you on how I've been able to adapt is to create a sort of schedule. And this is mainly for students. And what I like to do is to adapt to virtual schooling, I like to in university, you're able to see all the deadlines and project schedules and exams that you're going to have. So at the start of the study semester, I create an overall schedule with all my deadlines. So I know I can break down my weeks on a weekly deadline basis. And this might not be the case for maybe high school or junior high because teachers don't give that long-term goal. But if you're able to ask your teachers on a weekly basis of what deadlines you have coming up, making that schedule is very helpful because it'll let you break down your weeks and even your daily activity on a weekly goal that you can achieve. What I've also done is it's been hard to sort of connect with classmates and teachers. And so what I like to do is I like to try and stay connected with my classmates via Zoom calls just like this, like we're having, and try and schedule time with friends and study groups to stay connected. And the last tip I've adapted to virtual schooling that I like to give is if you have any questions, it's always best to email your teachers or professors early on, and that will help you achieve your understanding of whatever you're trying to learn.
That's good to know. So Ojas, can you tell us how has Gayatri Parivar helped you in your career goals?
Yeah, sure. So I guess so very simply, with Gayatri Pariwar, I've had the opportunity to volunteer. So for example, a couple of years ago, we did tree planting events. So very, very simple, but you have the opportunity to go out and do structured forms of volunteering. And why that matters is I know a lot of companies, a lot of applications, if you're applying to different schools, you're applying to different programs, or even if you're applying to jobs, they'll ask you sometimes for structured volunteering. And one avenue to do that is through Gayatri Pariwar. So there's things like that. There's things like getting involved in youth camps, learning leadership skills through things like youth camps. So that's quite simply how Gayatri Pariwar has directly affected or helped me. But I think the bigger thing that that Gayatri Pariwar has actually helped with, and I think Jaladi, Muskan, and Mitto even touched on this too, is one of the biggest things in order to grow is developing a network of people or learning to be with people who are either like-minded or think in a way that you want to think like. So what that means essentially is everyone who's talked in this call thus far, who's been an adult, works full-time jobs. They work incredibly hard. But if you see almost on a weekly basis, they always talk about volunteering, or they always talk about giving back to their community. And that is something that is very admirable for us students to get.
Excuse me, someone has their iPhone.
Yeah, I muted them.
Can you
Yeah.
mute it?
Yeah, so like I was saying, if you surround yourself with like-minded people and you see that everyone involved in Gayatri Pariwar, they're working incredibly hard and they all have full-time jobs, but they still almost every week, almost on a monthly basis, they are always talking on how to give back to the community even more for free and selfless service. And the more that you see this as a student or as a child, the more you will do this growing up. So if they can do this while working so hard, then why can't I, or why can't other students who have a lot less responsibilities? So I think the biggest impact Gayatri Pariwar has had on me is that it's shown me the importance of giving back and how many opportunities there are to giving back, and how you can even give back in so many different ways. Like it doesn't just have to be through volunteering. It could just be through maybe helping someone in Gayatri Pariwar learn more about spirituality. Even just that one-on-one connection is you giving back and volunteering your time. So I think the biggest thing overall that Gayatri Pariwar has given me is it's taught me that we should make it a priority to give back to our community. And it does not matter how you do it. You don't have to pray all the time. You don't have to volunteer all the time. But what you should do is you should figure out ways to give back to your community in a way that works for you. And if all of these adults can do it, then we can certainly do it as children and students as well.
That's good to know, Jess. And I really like the fact that it gives you, like you got the opportunity to do it in so many different ways. Like you don't have to stick to just doing one type of thing like puja or havan. You can be connected with the Gayatri Pariwar and you can do so many other things. You will be involved with your like-minded people, your own age group people, and you can have fun while volunteering as well. So that's good to know. Jaladi, my next question is for you. How have you cared for your mental health as a student? So we heard from Vaishnavi about mental health in her presentation, but I would like to know how you practically applied some of those things to care for your mental health.
Yeah, Vaishnavi, like you said, already touched on aspects of well-being, and Muskan as well. So for mental health, being a student, we are often just focused on a goal, just meeting those deadlines, finishing off whatever is set for us to do during the day or for the year, that we do not pay attention to our mental health. Spirituality definitely helps you become more self-aware, which is something which has helped me recognize when I know that I need a break, because burnout in student life is very real. When you're studying or just like focused on going through your exams, or just like even finishing your degree and jumping to the next one, it's always go time. So I would say just like take a deep breath, just relax. Sometimes you need to take some time off for self-care, which is also really important. One thing which has really helped me is just taking some time out of the schedule. When you're planning your schedule, also plan time for your self-care. So don't always plan it to do some work. It has to be either like whatever helps you. It could be a movie break. It could be just like going out, getting some fresh air. It could be some form of physical activity, but whatever helps you, whatever makes you happy, just do that sometimes, because you need that. Otherwise you're going to burn out, and burnouts are very real for students who have been studying for a long period of time, especially those who have gone into professional degrees or programs which are really long. At some point in time you will get exhausted. So I would say keep on getting those healthy breaks and take care of your mental health, because it is just as important.
Thanks, Jaladi. That's good to know. So I will come back to you, Ojas, again. So you made it to the medical school in UFA, and I know that it is a very tough thing to get in. So many kids want to know, like, what was your daily routine while studying for a big exam like MCAT or preparing for it?
Yeah, so I think it applies to not just like the MCAT exam, but it applies to LSAT and GMAT. And there's big exams. I know if some of you are in high school, you might be considering writing the SAT. So that's another big exam as well. So I'll quickly just go over what the opinion and exam. And again, there's no right or wrong way, but this is just what I did. So again, what I mentioned earlier, if I could do this 5 years ago, this is what I implemented. But the first thing I would do is I would wake up. The first thing I do when I wake up is I go and I grab my piece of paper and I write down 4 or 5 things that I want to complete that day. And then I would put a certain timestamp by them. And what I mean by timestamp is, and it's very simple. Like, even if it's like, I want to go out for a walk, I would just write walk for 30 minutes. And this is not a huge thing to do, but just putting pen to paper and writing that will make a difference. So what I would do is I would usually wake up around, when I have big exams, I try to structure my day. So I wake up early. I wake up around 7 a.m. And then I would have breakfast. I would first thing, again, write down on that piece of paper what my to-do list was for that day. And then I would have breakfast, and then I would study for, I like to study in segments of 25 minutes of studying and then 5 minutes of break. So I would just do segments of that. So I'd study for 25 minutes, then I'd take a 5-minute break, walk around, stretch, like we mentioned in the well-being presentation. So I would do that for a couple of times, and I would have my lunch, and then I would continue doing that and studying. But then right after that, just as important as studying, one of the other big things that I really prioritize is exercise. So right after that, after about maybe 4 to 5 hours of studying, I would exercise for an hour. And then like Jaldi was mentioning too, for mental health, after that, and after I've done a good amount of studying and that I'm happy with my studying, I actually do is I would schedule time for just free time. And whether that's going on the TV or going on my phone and just watching, I know nowadays there's the TikTok app that everyone's using. So maybe I just go on TikTok for a little bit, right? Whatever it is, it's 2 hours of time for me. So if I want to use that time to just lie down and do nothing, that's totally okay. But on my list, I put that down, that 2 hours of time for me. And I know this is also probably the most likely time that parents will come in and look at you and be like, why aren't you studying? So you just tell them, I need that time for my well-being and my mental health, and then they'll listen. But it's very important to not only study, but it's very important to schedule time for yourself and schedule time for exercise. So there's many different ways of studying, and I don't think there's a right way of studying. But I think the biggest thing that I would want you to take away from this is make sure you make that to-do list, and don't spend more than 1 minute on your to-do list. If you're spending more than 1 minute on your to-do list, then you're doing it wrong. Okay, spend 1 minute on your to-do list max. Every time you finish your to-do list, check it off. And then number 2 is schedule some time for exercise. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to run a marathon all the time. You can just go for a 30-minute walk outside, but schedule some time for exercise. And lastly, schedule 1 to 2 hours in your day to do whatever you want. If that's going on your phone on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, then that's okay. That's your time for your well-being. So that was my routine. And then I would usually end the day around 10 or 11 p.m. And then I would wake up again at 7 a.m. And I would try to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, but I would always try to make sure that I wake up pretty early, just because actually a lot of studies have shown that we perform best in the morning. So parents are always right when they say to wake up early, because if you look at any successful person, they perform best in the morning. So that was kind of some insight into what my schedule was like back in the day.
Thanks, Ajay. My next question is for Mithul. Mithul, you've been living away from home, and I wanted to ask you, what have you learned about living away from home?
Thank you, Manisha. So yeah, I am currently in Toronto, University of Waterloo, so in Waterloo, Ontario. So I've been living away from home for around 4 years now. And right after high school, I had to move to Waterloo to attend university. But the main takeaway I learned from living alone is independence. And what I mean by that is you're able to make decisions. You learn to make decisions by yourself on a day-to-day basis. And that is decisions like what you're going to eat for tonight, or what you're going to have for breakfast the day after. And it might seem overwhelming at first that you have to do all these decisions yourself, like learning to cook, cleaning and doing everything yourself. But what I learned and what I found is that there's going to be other people, friends, peers, that are going to be in a similar situation, and you share similar experiences, so you can learn from others on how to do your laundry for the first time. And we live in a generation where you can always search everything online on how to watch a YouTube video, on how to cook, things like that. So I learned to be independent as a student living away from home. And in general, you learn a lot of life skills on decision making on a day-to-day basis. But never be overwhelmed, because there's always resources. Like you can always call your parents back, which I do from time to time. Like every other day, I'm always on the phone with my mom, and like I'm making a new recipe. I always ask her the steps. Make sure the YouTube video matches what my mom is doing, so I know I get it right. But like cooking is an experimentation. But bigger decisions, like you think you need help, you're always in contact with friends and family. But the main takeaway, I think, by learning, living away from home is independence and learning to make decisions for yourself.
That's good to know, Mithil. I know that it is quite challenging to move away from the home and the protective environment, but it is good to see that you have grown quite independent, and you are, instead of complaining about what you're missing about the home and the comforts of ready food delivered to you 3 times a day, you have become a cook yourself now. So cheers to you for that. Next question is for Jalabi. Jalabi, all the kids have friends, and sometimes you choose your friends, sometimes you just get the friends. I wanted to know, or please tell us, what impact do your friends have on your career goals, if
Thank
any?
you, Shanti, for the question. As O just touched on it, that when you meet more people, when you volunteer more, when you give back to the community, you're likely to meet more people. And when that happens, when you're networking, making connections, you surround yourself with mostly positive minded people that helps motivate you in your life, professionally and personally. Sometimes you need to be aware that not everything is going to be positive experiences. You might even have a kind of toxic relationship also creep up on you. So just to be like mentally prepared and aware that that can also happen, and that it's okay, because even the negative experiences teach you and make you a better person over time. I don't know about others, but when friends are concerned, I would not have been in law school or thought about law school without having friends in my life, because law school wasn't something like I mentioned before. 5 years ago, I was very set in my own ways, and law school was not something which was on my mind. So through volunteering, I met someone, and she was in law school, and she just helped motivate me and pushed me here, and I'm just happy to be here today. So it all depends on the friends, that because friends is sometimes you choose them, sometimes you don't, because you meet all kinds of people in your life. So just like sorting out as to how much distance you want to keep from each individual based on how they affect you personally in your lives is something which is really important, and you learn it over the years, but the sooner that you learn to recognize people, the better. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, Mithil, I have this next question for you. So when did you get involved in volunteering and community activities? And what particular extracurricular activities were you involved in? So I really want to know, like, at what age kids should start consider getting involved in volunteering and community activities?
Right. So this really will depend on the ability for your parents to also help out extracurriculars. But I got involved, I would say in my junior high years. So I don't know, I think like age 10, 11, 12 is when I really began either volunteering or just extracurriculars in general. And the first few things I remember doing is just taking like recreational swimming lessons or badminton in junior high, joining clubs like that in the school. What I also did is, and this was my family, they took me to Alberta Hindi school, which was to help me learn Hindi as a second language. Because growing up as a kid in Canada, you sometimes might lose touch with your cultural heritage. So I was able to learn Hindi as a second language when I was in junior high, around 12. But as for volunteering, one of the key things I think that's important is look at school teams and clubs. But if not only that, I know a great resource was the Edmonton Public Library when I originally was in Edmonton. and they're always a great resource to find volunteering activities or like events going down. I know it might not be best case right now with COVID, but definitely check out their website. The first volunteering activity I remember doing for a long commitment time was volunteering at a long-term care facility. So the Shepherd's Care Foundation in Millwoods is when I volunteered when I was in junior high. And it was just a drop-in activity I would do on the weekends, commit 3 or 4 hours on the weekends, take the bus there, and just help out with the old care residents. Like either I would be hosting trivia nights for them or board games or just taking them to their meals. And long-term care facilities are always open to having volunteering, such as students, mainly above the ages of 12. And then after that, I was able to join Air Cadets, which focuses mainly on leadership, physical fitness, and aviation when I was in grade 9. And I did that Air Cadets program for 4 years, which I learned a lot from. I attended summer camps, etc. Did volleyball with them. But lastly, one of the long-term commitments of extracurriculars and volunteering I've done is being part of Gayatri Pariwar. I've been participating in youth camps as a participant as a youth. And events like this is now I can be more of a panelist or a mentor to younger kids. But I've enjoyed a lot of great things with Gayatri Pariwar. That was including the tree planting activities we did a few years ago, attending picnics, as well as youth camps. I think can also be a great opportunity to volunteer and put into extracurriculars, especially if you want to have a portfolio of things that might help with university applications or just something to put on your resume when you apply to jobs in the future.
Thanks, Mithul. That's good to know. Yeah, I know there is a variety of activities for kids to join as volunteers, and sometimes it's very confusing. But as you said, that there is always something that you will like, and depending on what your parents can take you to, and try and find something that matches your interest. Thanks for that. My next question is for you, Ojas. What role has physical health played in your success?
So for me personally, like I said, the first thing I do, I get up and I make my little to-do list. So the reason I put physical health on there is because I challenge anyone on this call to tomorrow go out for a 30-minute walk and tell me you feel bad afterwards. I can almost guarantee it's impossible, especially now with COVID, like the wellness session was talking about, right? We're always stuck at home. We're always on Zoom, we're on Microsoft Teams, on Skype, or if you're going to work, then you're just at work and just working. Like how often do you take time out of your day to just focus on yourself? And when you go for a walk, I mean, just go for a walk and do nothing else but walk. If it's walking with a family member, that's okay too. But for me personally, I think it's helped in my success because it's given me the biggest form of stress relief. Sure, you can go on your phone and go on these different apps and stuff too, but if you want stress relief in a way that's beneficial for your body, I think that's the number one thing. I think another thing too is, for me personally, ever since I started getting involved in physical activity, I've become a lot more confident in myself, and that hasn't I don't mean just in terms of when I'm meeting people and stuff, but I also mean in terms of giving presentations. Even in school, when you get called up and the teacher asks you, hey, come and present this or come talk about this, there's a weird dynamic, but the more exercise you do and the more confident you feel in your own body because of it, the more confident you will feel in terms of giving presentations, talking to other people. So they're minor things, but the long-term impacts of exercise is really great. And I can tell you this from, so I'm now in my second year of medicine, and we've learned over 100, 200 diseases. And there are a few things that they teach us are called preventative factors. So what preventative factors are there are things people can do to stop you from developing a disease. And almost every single thing that, every single disease, the number one preventative factors are food and exercise. And so food, we already talked about a lot of. Mental health, we talked a lot about it. But the reason physical exercise is important too is because I can go on and on about the benefits, but if you keep your body active, it will live for a longer time. Your muscles will be more active, and physical exercise doesn't necessarily mean you're running on the treadmill every day or you're going for a marathon. our genes aren't necessarily predisposed to be running all the time or like working out all the time. Maybe if you're younger, you can play sports all the time. But even if you go for a walk every single day for 30 minutes, the longevity of your life will be increased so much. And the earlier you start this, the better. And there's many different forms of exercise. It doesn't matter what type of exercise you do, but if you can implement just 30 minutes of exercise every single day, the amount of times you will go into the hospital for the rest of your life will drop so much you won't even know it. So that's what I'd recommend from the medicine side of things. Is it's important to worry about your mental health and food, but sometimes people forget about physical health. And I think that's incredibly important. And if you can devote even 30 minutes of walking a day, it will have a huge impact on your life. Andy, I think you're muted.
Thanks for that, Ojas. I think we can all benefit from it. It's just not for kids, and we all adults must also take a note of that and start including some physical activity in our daily routine. So I think we are on time now. Time to wrap up. I just received one question in the chat, and it's from Flight Corporal Sarup, and it's directed to you, Ojas. I think it's a comment/question. So if you can read in the chat box.
Yeah, I can quickly read
and
it.
There is the second part. First part is the comment, and second part is more like a question. So between Mithul and you, if you can quickly take it, a couple of minutes I will give you, and then we will move to our closing remarks.
I think there's another question for Mithul as well. If you scroll down, so there are two questions. So we can take up both questions.
So just the first question is it's asking about, so the question is asking, is it okay to set a schedule a couple of weeks in advance? So I think that's totally fine. That's totally okay. But the reason I think it's best to at least do 1 minute of a to-do list every single day is because 1 minute is very easy to do. If you tell me you don't have time to make a to-do list every morning because it takes too long, then I know you're lying to me. So 1 minute, spending 1 minute to make a to-do list, the reason I vouch for that is because it's something you can do every single day, and if you can do something every single day, it will keep you consistent. And if you can keep something consistent, it will always add quality and benefit to your life. So that's why I said if you can do it every single day, that's good. If you can do it even earlier, that's even better. But that's, so the more scheduling you can have, the better. But I think a simple first step for everyone is if you can just take 1 minute out of your day to make a to-do list, it will go a long way. And then Mithil, I think you're next.
Just reading the question, is it the question related to, would you recommend to take school elsewhere as opposed to your hometown? So this is mainly, I think personally, I would recommend anyone applying to university to explore the option of taking school out of province. I think the main takeaway that I've learned is really sets you up for life in general by building independence and social skills. Like having roommates, you learn very important skills on how to be a good roommate, which is maintaining and building relationships. There's many benefits of taking school out of province. There also might be limitations that are based on your own situation, like logistical, financial, etc. But if you do apply to university, do explore the option of taking it abroad, or I would say out of province. I think doing that research, that one step of research in schools like University of Alberta, or just going to, let's say, University of BC, British Columbia, just another province, really is an essential step in applying for university, or even jobs in general. Yeah.
How are we doing on time, Nupur? Can we take one more question?
I think you're muted.
Yeah, we think we can take one more question.
So it is a very specific question. I don't know if we can answer it here in the general discussion or not, but Ojas, there is a question from Anjali, and she's asking, I'm going to take psychology next year. Do you have any advice?
Yeah, so I guess it's very general, and I want to give any advice like applicable to all ages here. So I think what I would say I'm assuming you mean for university. So if you're starting university or high school, even junior high for some of the younger people, my number one advice, and this is the main thing I keep saying all the time, is really plan and schedule. Like Mithil was talking about it too, if you can schedule your day, then you have no excuses for procrastinating. You have no excuses for pushing work off because it's in your schedule. And if you just follow a schedule, it's very easy to do. The human brain is wired to function when it's given instructions. So if you give yourself instructions or a diagram or an organization schedule, you will perform significantly better as opposed to an abstract. I'm sorry, by abstract, I mean, if you just know that you have to study, you will do it, but you just don't know when you'll do it. But if you write down exactly when you'll study, for how long you'll study, and what you're going to study, you will do it much better than if you just think about it. So in terms of psychology, what I'd recommend is just, try to plan it out and use that to your best advantage. The more you can schedule and the more planning you incorporate in your life, the farther you'll go. At least from my 23 years of experience.
I have a comment on it as well, because I did my undergrad in science psychology, like my 4 years. And yeah, I would totally agree with Ojas, because it's sometimes abstract. Sometimes the courses are not that planned or have a straight direction to go to. So time management, organization, being involved. I would say if you're starting university next year, or if anyone is already in university, I know COVID has been a barrier to getting involved and just volunteering with organizations, but like that is something which is very, very beneficial, and that is the one takeaway that you will take from your undergrad degree. So definitely get involved more.
Thanks, Ojas, and thanks, Jaladi. So I think we don't have any more questions. Thank you all. Thanks, Mithul, Jaladi, and Ojas. It was quite a lively chat, and it was very good to know your tips and insights on all these various subjects. So all the best to all of you in the next year and your careers. With that, I will hand it back to Nupur.
No, excellent job.